In my last video, I talked about how Bitcoin has followed the 4-year cycle pattern almost perfectly. But in today's video, I want to flip the script and ask a different question. What if this time really is different? Because when we look at the last bull market, there's one thing that stands out almost immediately. We simply didn't get that euphoric blow off top like we have in every other cycle. Think back to earlier bull markets. You had insane price actions and retail was just throwing in their money. Everybody was talking about crypto and the next coin that could go 100x. That extreme euphoria wave have historically marked the end of a cycle before the bear market begins. But this time it just wasn't the same. And in my opinion, the biggest reason is simple. Retail interest just wasn't there like before. Instead, the bull market was very different because we had institutional investors. Now, why does that matter? Because institutions behave differently compared to retail investors. In previous cycles, the market was dominated by retail investors. People chasing momentum, buying tops and selling bottoms. That's what created those massive blow-off tops and those brutal long bear markets that followed after. But institutions don't behave like that. They manage their investments. Let's say Bitcoin makes up 1% of their investments. If Bitcoin suddenly doubles or triples, that might become 3% of their investments. So what do? They rebalance, selling some Bitcoin to get back to that 1% of their investments. And the same thing of course also happens on the downside. If Bitcoin drops, they buy more to get that 1%. So what does this do? It creates a kind of automatic stabilizer in the market. It makes it harder for Bitcoin to go to extreme highs, but also harder to crash to extreme lows. And that's why this cycle could play out differently. Because if we didn't have extreme greed on the way up, then why should we expect a brutal long bear market like the other times before? Let's talk about where we currently are. At the time of recording this video, Bitcoin is trading in the 60k range, which is more than 50% down from the all-time highs. And right now we are sitting at a very important level. This level isn't just random support, it lines up with the previous bull market all-time highs, a major consolidation range in 2024 that lasted around 8 months, and is also very close to the 200-week moving average, which has historically been one of the strongest support levels during bear markets. So from a technical perspective, we are sitting at one of the strongest support levels for Bitcoin. Now, if we look at the indicators, pretty much everything you can think of is in the deep red. Momentum indicators, sentiment indicators, on-chain metrics, most of them are either at or near historical lows. When these indicators are already at extreme lows, it becomes harder for them to go lower immediately. Usually what needs to happen first is some kind of reset, and that reset usually comes in two forms: sideways consolidation, a relief rally to the upside. Either way, it suggests that we should see some kind of upside before we potentially go lower, if there is of course more downside. Now, in my last video we talked about the traditional Bitcoin cycle. And if Bitcoin followed that exact history, this is what we could expect: a short counter-trend rally, followed by a rollover, and then a final move down toward the 200-week moving average or below it, before eventually bottoming sometime around October. That would be the classic bear market structure. But I want to present a different scenario. Now, this scenario still assumes that we are in a bear market, but not a brutal bear market like the previous cycles. Because again, no extreme euphoria likely means no extreme panic. So here's how this could play out. Like we talked about earlier, we are sitting at super strong support. And because the market is so oversold, I still expect a counter-trend rally from here, but I think this rally could be stronger than what most people expect. And the reason for that is based from what we have already seen from this bear market. The last counter-trend rally we had was when Bitcoin tested a short consolidation level. From there it rallied up to the bear market resistance band before getting rejected and moving lower again. But now we are not sitting on a short consolidation range. We are sitting on a much longer, stronger consolidation base, which means there's more support, more structure and more demand in this area. So naturally that increases the probability that the bounce from here could be bigger and more sustained than the previous ones. Now, my personal target, if we get this counter-trend rally, would still be around the bear market resistance band. But there is also a realistic chance that we move above it and go even higher. Now here's where it gets interesting. After that rally, I still expect Bitcoin to eventually roll over again and come back down. But instead of making a significantly lower low, we could come back down to roughly the same level we are at right now, creating a double bottom pattern, which would be the opposite of the double top we saw at the end of the bull market last cycle. And that double bottom could mark the true bottom of this bear market. Now let's talk about timing. Now I know this video is about Bitcoin not following the traditional history, but we can still use some history for a rough guide. One interesting comparison is 2019, which we have talked about before on this channel. In 2019, Bitcoin also topped under somewhat similar conditions, without a massive euphoric blow off top, and the bear market that followed was actually shorter than a traditional cycle. Now if we use that as a rough reference, that could suggest a low sometime in June, where the traditional 4-year cycle would point more towards October. So again, the key idea here is a weaker bull market could lead to a shorter and less severe bear market. So what does this mean for you and me? Well, right now we could potentially be sitting around the range low for this bear market. Could Bitcoin still go lower? Yes, absolutely. Nothing is guaranteed. But at the same time, if this scenario plays out, there's a real chance that the opportunity that people are waiting for to buy at a lower price is not gonna come. And that's why I have been buying a lot at these range lows and continue to DCA like I always have. Because of course trying to predict the exact bottom is almost impossible, and then you just end up missing out. But buying in strong support zones when sentiment is low and the indicators are oversold, that's historically been a very solid strategy. Now there is also a second scenario we have to acknowledge, and that is simply, what if the bottom is already in? There are some indicators that suggest that that might be the case. The easiest one to understand is the RSI on the weekly time frame, which is currently in oversold territory. Historically, when the weekly RSI reaches these levels, it has often marked a major bottoms or at least significant reversals. But we also have to be realistic here. For Bitcoin to go from here straight to new all-time highs and enter a super cycle, in my opinion, that's the least likely scenario. Possible, yes. Probable, no. So to summarize, this cycle has been different due to less retail interest and more institutional interest. That could lead to a less extreme bear market. We are currently sitting at major support with a lot of indicators in the oversold. A stronger than expected counter trend rally is very possible, followed by a potential double bottom pattern and a bear market that could end earlier than what we expect. But as always, no one knows for sure. Everything we talk about in these videos are just speculation. This is based on probabilities and not certainties. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like and subscribe. Comment down below what I can do better. I love to hear from you guys. I always read your comments and love hearing your guys' perspectives. And remember, the markets reward patience, not perfection. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.